As you can see, it survived the first winter at 2,200 feet in the mountains with roughly 3 to 4 feet of snow on it, so that's already a 10. Hello! Today's video I'm going to be sharing with you our chicken journey thus far. Last year we had meat chickens for the first time. We did our chicken tractor build, followed plans for a construction project for the first time. There was a lot of firsts, and with a lot of firsts comes a lot of lessons. So in order for you guys to be up to date and caught up on this season's chicken escapades, we need to do a bit of a rewind, show you our chicken tractor build, walk you through kind of how our last year went, and some of the big lessons that we learned, because there was quite a few. At the end of this video, we'll talk about what 2023's chicken season has in store for us and cover some of our big mistakes, our takeaways, and how we're planning to fix and grow and move forward onto brighter chicken pastures. If it is your first time here to the channel, hey, hi, hello, welcome. My name is Melanie. Our Tamtara Grows series is all about my mother and I developing and growing our homestead. We live on 56 acres, roughly 2,200 feet in the lovely mountains of the Okanagan, which is the interior of British Columbia. If you guys haven't seen it, I will link above in the cards to the video where we went and picked up the chickens. It was a great time. Again, lots of firsts. But as it stands, let's get into taking a look at building our John Suscovich. I'm gonna butcher that this whole time. Our stress-free chicken tractor.
Good morning.
What are we doing today?
We're cutting a few more lap joints into the side rails of the chicken tractor, and then we're going to assemble it on this beautiful sunny day. I thought I have 4 more lap joints to cut. This one here, the thin black one, can go into the roof. If it goes in there, it doesn't. Because then it can go, it turns on with the switch from the inside.
Like I said, we worked with the stress-free chicken tractor plans from John Suscovich. Mom went through, and in the plans there's actually a cut list, so she pre-cut all of these boards. She also cut these lap joints. This was Mom's first time cutting lap joints, and she really enjoyed learning how to do it. Took her time, and I think she did amazing. We had one bobo where she cut through one of the boards, but we just patched it up, and it worked and still works perfectly fine. We actually chose to assemble the chicken tractor frame on our deck because it is flat. We have some other areas where it could have worked, but it was all gravel, and this just kept it really nice and easy to square and work with on our hands and knees if need be. Overall, we really enjoyed working with a set kind of plan like this. We have done lots of builds and other kind of DIY projects, but it was nice to have a tractor plan simply because we could go to the store and buy a specific amount of wood. Saved us doing a lot of hypothetical measurements and mental math, and it did make it a lot faster. We did spend a lot of time reading the instructions because we were concerned we were going to be doing something wrong and wanted to make sure we did it right. But the stress-free chicken tractor stands by its name and is mostly stress-free. I think the only area that kind of stumped us was putting together the front door. There were a few things that we just weren't clear on, whether Mom cut a few of the boards a little differently or we had put some of the boards in the wrong spot. Getting the actual door portion framed out and making sense took us a little while. I always love going back and looking at footage from previous years because so many things have changed. For example, I do not have split dyed hair with blonde and brown hair anymore. That's gone. But no, for real, we get to go back and see like the massive progress with different projects, just how the land is growing year to year. It's a really interesting way to do like a comparison, and it's probably one of my favorite parts of having a YouTube channel. We definitely strayed from the plans by the time we got to the door. I don't know if we just weren't figuring it out ourselves. I mean, it just wasn't working for our brains. So we made some slight changes. I think ultimately it's the same as the plans. It just took us a long time to figure out exactly how we wanted to do things, and I think we ended up switching some stuff around a bit, but it works wonderfully. You'll see our friend Danny kicking around in the back. He was actually fixing the leak in our skylight in the kitchen of the main house while we were putting this together. We are missing Danny this season. He's not here this spring like he was for the previous 2 springs, but he's with us in spirit as we make this video and look back on our chicken tractor build. It's nice to see him in there. You assemble the 4 separate walls and then you put them all together to complete the frame. We did our best to square it off as best as we could. This was the main reason we wanted it on the deck, so that we could more easily square it off. Last piece to get attached was the front panel piece that has the door frame and the walls. Yeah, looking back on it, I still don't know why it stumped us so much, but that door really took all of our 4 brain cells to get it together. But as you can see, it is standing and it worked.
That's where he was going up.
Day 1 complete, and the wooden frame for our chicken tractor is all assembled. Looking good. Next step is to get those metal pieces on to frame out the roof. Man, am I happy that this May, compared to last May, there is significantly less mosquitoes. I don't show you guys footage, but my brother's actually an electrician and got us not only a deal on the electrical conduit used to create the A-frame roof for the chicken tractor, but he also is extremely good at bending it for us. So thank you to the brother for bending all of the conduit. It went in pretty easy. We just screwed it into the 2x4 frame. This is the first time that we've used metal to create a roof, and Mom and I have built many roofs, whether it's for lean-tos or sheds or cottages or outdoor kitchens. There's been a fair deal of roof making on this property, and this is the first time we've used metal to do so, and I really enjoyed it. It's quite light. As long as you have the ability to bend the conduit, it's definitely a solid option to consider and will be on the roster for possible DIYs in the future. You can definitely get this chicken tractor build done in one day, but if I'm being perfectly honest, I'm a horrible person when I'm hot, hungry, wet, and being attacked by mosquitoes. So we, for the sanity and safety of all those involved, spread this out over 2 days. Day 2, we built the rest on the grass where we were going to be tractoring the chickens. It just seemed the easiest to do it this way. Everything was already attached and assembled, and it was all squared off and good to go, so we thought putting on the roof portion would be fine on the grass. Chicken wire is way better with 2 people, period. I don't care what you're building, whether it's a fence or a roof. If you can, get yourself a partner in crime and do it together, because it just winds back up on itself if you don't, and this way you can really just snug it tight, connect it on one side, put it over the roof, tack her down real good, and it goes a lot smoother. Within the stress-free chicken tractor plans, there's an option given, so you can use chicken wire on the front portion and the back portion of the roof, and it would actually leave a little bit of a gap in the middle that would be covered by the tarp. You can do that and it's totally fine. We just chose to cover the entire roof with the chicken wire just to feel extra secure when it comes to predators. We do live very, very, very rurally. As you can see, there's just forest behind us. Nothing is fenced, and we don't have these guys within an electric fence. So it's just our dog that kind of keeps predators out of the area. So having that open space in there just felt a little too risque.
I reckon it's only going to be that. I hope we have enough to do the gable end and door. We'll figure it out.
Man, if I thought that the mosquitoes were bad when we were building this on the deck, once we got this chicken tractor over to this side of the house where the grass was getting pretty tall and it was wet and moist, holy moly, it was like being in a jungle. I was wearing a long sleeve, I was swatting them away. Mosquitoes make any kind of mundane building job so much more infuriating because it's just having like this thing pester you 2 inches away from your face. Okay, I'm done complaining about mosquitoes, but you guys need to know that that was probably the worst part of this chicken tractor build. We definitely chose one heck of a project to forget to buy more staples to complete. So I think if you were to build this, make sure you go out and buy a bunch of extra staples. We were working on a finite amount, so we were actually doing this very sparingly. Hindsight 2020, make sure you have a surplus of staples at your disposal. So we got the side pieces on and the roof done fairly quickly, and lo and behold, that brings us to the door, which again, for some reason, we struggled with. It was very easy. We just decided to use the hardware cloth for the door itself because we had to barely cut it, just a little bit for the locking piece, the locking mechanism. But then to get the chicken wire around the rest of the kind of face of the chicken tractor proved to be a little difficult. We decided to use some additional metal pieces to attach it to the back of the door frame. That worked out well. And as you can see, it turned out beautifully, but we did struggle to get that chicken wire on the sides, on those little triangle pieces, in there and snugged so that the chickens would be safe from predators. Highly recommend you use a white tarp. It keeps it a lot cooler for the chickens. The back is open for airflow. We have the wheels just kind of resting in there. It turned out really awesome. The build overall was fairly painless. Mom came up with a really cool way just to use some wooden trim, like for baseboards or for windows, to tuck in and take up the slack of the additional tarp on the bottom so it doesn't drag and it keeps it nice and snug. The chicken tractor was done just in time for our 4.5-week mark for our little chicks to get out of their brooder. The space was getting tight. I was having to put a lot of deep bedding in there, which is fine, but it's always best to get them out on fresh grass as soon as you can. So it was perfect timing. With the chicken tractor build complete, I had to get on getting their water and their food situated. For the watering situation, we used a 5-gallon bucket and put the chicken drinking nipples underneath and hung it from the center conduit in the chicken tractor roof. For the feeder trough, it's just a PVC pipe cut roughly in half, a little bit less than half actually, and hung from that center conduit in the roof as well. To hang both the waterer and the feeder, we just used baler twine. I'm sure there's going to be people out there who say that that's not safe for the chickens, but we had no issues. Just make sure it's tied nice and tight. I liked this as an option because it made it adjustable. We don't need to conserve our baler twine use, so we can just cut it and tie it shorter or higher or lower, etc. It worked really well for us. Food, water, housing, all situated. Now comes time to move the chickens into their new digs. I can't believe I just said that like that. These are the little monsters themselves. We did get Rhode Island Red, and I will link above to the video of us actually picking these chicks up. We didn't lose any in the chick phase. They are very hardy birds, and they made it all to the chicken tractor, which was exciting. Ripley was extremely concerned. He's very good with the chickens and with any small animals, honestly. He just whines and will follow you around and is very attentive. He sounds essentially like a husky. He has a lot to say about everything that's going on, and he will escort you every step of the way. We don't have one of those handy-dandy chicken crates, so we actually just hand-bombed the chickens into the tractor one at a time. I have never raised meat birds or laying hens any other way than in a chicken tractor. Well, I've never had laying hens regardless, but I've never had chickens any other method than this. We started with the chicken tractor, and I have to say there is something really magical about seeing all of your chickens run around on fresh grass. It feels really awesome to know that they're having a very close to natural life experience, and it was really rewarding to be able to put them in this chicken tractor and watch them frolic and eat dandelions. Just for the first little bit, we actually kept their small waterer in the tractor with them on a stump so that in case they didn't figure out how to drink off of the other waterer, that they had that there as an option. They picked up on the other kind of 5-gallon bucket with the nozzles very quickly, and I think it was only a couple of days that we had the other waterer in there. They found the food instantly, and the suspended PVC food tray was at the perfect height, so that was exciting, and it was so nice. They loved it. They did a little wing flap, they settled in right away, and it was an incredible start to their tractor experience.
Take a drink. Oh, obligatory. There you go. Yay. Look at that, they're just so beautiful. They love their tray. Perfect height.
It is perfect height.
Bon appetit. Bon appetit.
Oh, that one's exploring a little dirt patch.
Nice. One's up on top. Two's up on top.
I have to say, it feels incredible getting the chickens out in the chicken tractor. Last year was our first year doing meat chickens. As I'm sure you are aware, there are so many ways to do chickens, pasture raised, whether you have them in a run, deep bedding methods, free range. There are pros and cons to all of it. I was just happy and very content with our tractor experience because they felt safe, it was contained, easy to manage, easy to move, and I think a really important thing when you're considering getting into livestock or homesteading in general, that whatever you're doing, you make it manageable and comfortable for you. I think that if it feels daunting to you and unmanageable, your stress level is going to be way higher than it needs to. So be honest with yourself in evaluating what you're willing to do and what you actually will be able to handle, and just start there. Like, you don't need to scale up to prove something or to be a successful homesteader. Start where you're comfortable, because if you're uncomfortable, it makes it way worse for yourself, and the negligence that can potentially come from you avoiding doing things or being nervous or uncertain about your animal management can then potentially lead to larger issues for your animals in the long run. From a student to a student, take it slow, especially when it comes to animals. So I'm going to give you a bit of a summary of some of our big lessons on the topic of taking it slow and mitigating previous mistakes. I find it really important to do a bit of an evaluation after every season. Definitely a perk of YouTube is being able to bring you along with me while I do these mini evaluations so that we can pivot in more fruitful directions, more sustainable directions, more easily manageable directions. The first mistake or lesson that we are changing things up to mitigate this year was actually the variety or breed of chicken we purchased. Last season we purchased Rhode Island Reds. They are a heritage dual-purpose breed for both eggs and meat production on the homestead. They have higher immunity, they have a lot of that chicken instinct still in them, so they will scratch the ground, root, and get in there for insects and grasses and seeds and whatnot. A great bird. But I unfortunately somehow missed the fact that Rhode Island Red roosters are notoriously aggressive, and we didn't purchase sexed chicks. As you might imagine, this became a very big issue. I actually had to work really hard to get over some of the shame and the guilt that I was feeling around just somehow missing this. I had really gone deep into a chicken breed rabbit hole, and the only thing that I can say that really occurred for me was that I overloaded myself with information and I just missed a few key points. I didn't know how to sex chicks. We ended up purchasing these ones because I wanted that kind of heritage chicken instinct still intact in my chickens, which, by the way, was a beautiful attribute and is a positive pro for the Rhode Island Reds. I still would highly recommend this breed, but I somehow missed that their roosters are like notoriously aggressive, not even a little aggressive. They're very aggressive. So we ended up having a lot of fighting occur in our chicken tractor, to the point where we had multiple hospital cages where we had 2 or 3 chickens separated. We ended up retrofitting our existing goat pen to be able to have 5 or 6 roosters in there separated from the rest, and we created a lot of work for ourselves. I created a lot of work for my mother and I because I missed it. I made a mistake. I didn't put it together. I didn't realize it was our first time doing meat birds. I didn't think the fighting would be that bad. I thought I would have more time to separate the roosters out potentially. I thought maybe they wouldn't be sexually mature by the time butchering came around. My numbers got mixed up. I had too much information going on, and I was really panicked and worried about doing this right, that I think I put a lot of mental pressure on myself, and that resulted in a big error. With the intention of mitigating this, I'm actually switching the breed not to diss Rhode Island Red chickens at all. I will have them again. They are an incredible chicken. None of them died in transport. None of them died from being sick. The only ones who died were from infighting, which is entirely my fault. It has nothing to do with them. Very healthy bird, wonderful chicken instincts. They scratch, they ate. It's a great chicken with very aggressive roosters. If this is a video you're watching to do research on the breeds you should get, they're aggressive roosters. Remember, learn from my error. This time around for 2023, we're actually doing a classic Cornish cross, a broiler. We're doing a classic run-of-the-mill white meat bird. I had some reserves around doing a classic broiler chicken for many reasons. I think a lot of them is just a stereotype of them being the chicken that is in a lot of the factory farms, and doing a homestead meat operation for our chickens. In my mind, I think I was going as far away from that as I possibly could, and in the future I will be doing dual purpose varieties again, but this year I wanted to get a good understanding of a classic 8-week grow out, a size comparison, a meat bird that's just meat, yeah, and just to get a different kind of A/B test going. So this year we have sexed chicks. I think we are getting all hens, females, hens, yeah. We're getting all females, and they are a Cornish cross. We're also getting, I think, 5 less. I ended up purchasing more chickens last year than I intended because I thought some would pass away in transit or whatever, chicken math. And our hatchery actually sent us a few extra, so we ended up with more chickens than we needed, and even with the losses from the fighting, we managed to walk away with a pretty good harvest of 28 meat birds. Another less dramatic, but still warranted to note pivot would be how I do our fermented feed. Last year I was really trying to get into the swing of things, and like I said, I was just information overload, trying to do it all the most humane, natural way possible. I was fermenting the chicken feed. I didn't end up switching the feeds according to an actual schedule. I also didn't track how much feed we went through for those chickens, so I have no real comprehension of how much money it costs to raise out per bird. So this year I'm actually right off of the bat keeping a very strict what I have purchased feed wise or equipment wise to be able to better price out the cost to raise each meat bird, as well as keeping a timed schedule for when feeds are switching, as well as improving how I ferment the chicken feed. It's usually best to have chicken feed fermenting for 3 days prior to really get that fermentation occurring, but it took me a while to figure out like the water to feed ratio in the 5-gallon bucket. The chicken tractor moves, so you have to bring your bucket with you. So there were some hiccups and some learning curves. None of them were as detrimental as having too many Rhode Island Red roosters. That was the big one. But yeah, small changes are being made around the feeding schedule, keeping better track of that so that I can be efficient and prudent and cost effective. And I think last but not least comes to Butcher Day. So anybody who has chickens and is watching this video is probably going to laugh at me, but I had the intention of doing everything by hand at least once so that I could have the skill set and the experience and the know-how to do it that way if I needed. So we did not rent or purchase a chicken plucker, and we plucked all of these chickens by hand. It made for a very long day and a half actually, but we ended up dispatching, plunging, plucking, eviscerating, water bathing, all by hand with 2 people in 35 degrees. I will not do it that way again. I will rent, at the very least, I will rent a chicken plucker. I will also see if I have some friends who want to come and help. But chicken plucker is a must. I would say that that would probably cut our day in half, and I would be willing to do, with just Mother and I, an entire processing day of 30 chickens again, and the pivotal change will just be the chicken plucker. I have friends who take their chickens in to be butchered. That's also an option. So we're going to probably this year just do it with a chicken plucker, but there will be some tweaks and changes. Other than that, our butchering went really well. It was my first time dispatching an animal like that, and I did all 28 of them in one day, and I was very proud of myself. because I did it. It's my first time, made it. Another thing I will say is we used cones. We created cones, kill cones, out of 5-gallon buckets, which is an interesting project. They worked incredible. There was a lot of really good things that happened, interlaced with some really like traumatic infighting and panicked separating of chickens. All in all, we learned a lot doing our first round of meat birds. They're on their way in about a week, and that brings us to my last point of mitigation, and our last pivot of the season is actually how we are going to brood the chickens. Last year we ended up doing it in our yoga studio, which, while is doable, having 32 chickens in a brooder indoors is just not great. We also have a cat this year. Smudge lives in the house, and while I don't think her intention would be to ruin our day by murdering all of our chicks, the likelihood is high that something would occur. At the end of the day, Mom doesn't want the chicken brooder in the yoga studio, which is fair. I will have another video coming out talking about our soon-to-be quail endeavors, the adjustments and renos to our garden shed that we are making, because we will be brooding the chickens in the garden shed. We have to predator-proof it. They're still going to be in the big metal galvanized water trough because it's got high walls. We can do a deep bedding method, which I prefer to do, and keep them clean without having to change the whole brooder. So minor changes, no chicken brooding in the house. Chicken brooding will occur in the shed slash barn quail area, which there will be a video out on shortly. That is it for my chicken update. I hope that you have learned something from our escapades. All in all, we had a good harvest. We learned a lot. We made some mistakes, which I think is really important to be transparent about, especially on the internet. I'm not an expert, but Mother and I'm proud of what we did. We built a whole chicken tractor from plans, which we've never done. We raised the chickens out, we harvested them, we've been eating off of them all winter. It's been a really good experience, a good enough of an experience that we're doing it again this year with some tweaks and changes. So I will bring you along on the journey as always. If you are starting chickens and endeavoring into the meat bird world this season, let me know in the comments below. Ask me any questions you have about my choices and our journey thus far. I think the comment section is a great place to pick up some tips and tricks. A last parting note that I think it's important for everyone to remember and to never forget is that Rhode Island Red roosters are notoriously aggressive. May the force be with you, my friends. Live long and prosper. Enjoy the sunshine. Happy spring. As always, I will be back here very shortly with another video for you. Bye-bye for now.